Hi, everybody. I am here to talk about gaining confidence today. Um, all right. So I'm just going to dive in, and hopefully some of this will be relevant to you. So I wanted to talk about gaining confidence with a few things: writing your exam, doing your practicum, and teaching in the real world. And I think that for each of those things, there are different considerations. Perhaps the easiest one to address first is the one that I think is the easiest to prepare for, and that is doing your written exam for your program. I created most of the written exams, not all of them, and I did so based on a belief that I have that a written exam should not be full of a bunch of random, unimportant questions just to test someone for the sake of testing, but rather that it should be a reflection of some of the important concepts that we want students to know when they're completing the program. Furthermore, the written exam is multiple choice. So the right answer is there right in front of you. You just need to recognize it. You don't even need to come up with it in your head. You just need to recognize it. And I think the best thing that you can do for yourself to feel good and confident about writing the written exam is to make sure that you do a review of the content, the major headings, the major concepts before doing the written exam. You don't really need to study anatomy. I think there are only 2 questions in anatomy, and we've given a very generous margin for wrong questions in the written exam as well. I think you only need 70% to pass. So, and then if you do fail once, then we ask you to write it again within 5 days so that the information is still fresh, because presumably you have reviewed it recently, and then you can take the exam again. So in terms of gaining confidence for the exam, I think that confidence will come from pausing, taking a few deep breaths, and then reviewing these things that I've said, which is the exam is based on broad concepts, not little insignificant details. Reviewing the content will prepare you to recognize the correct answer in the multiple choice options that you're given. And even if you do happen to fail the first time, then you will be given the opportunity to write it again within 5 days. So hopefully that helps you feel a little bit more confident about writing the written exam. Next, I want to talk about practicums, which tend to be a lot more daunting for a lot of people, and understandably. Here are a few things I want to say about the practicum, and I might tell a story to help illustrate my point, and give a few little anecdotes. So I love that we do an online training and that you can review the information and you can practice your practicum a whole bunch of times and watch it back. That's a big key to gaining confidence. So that's probably the number one suggestion I have is the practicum that you send in should be the practicum that is the result of having practiced your practicum and watched it back at least once. I know some people might do that 5 times or 10 times before they send their practicum in. And that's okay. I wouldn't want to see you do it too much more than that, because I wouldn't want you to exhaust yourself teaching one exact same class over and over again just to get the practicum perfect, because we're not looking for perfection. So the first tip that I have is do your practicum or even pieces of it as you go, record yourself, watch it back, make notes, and then do it again if there's anything to be improved upon based on integrating the practicum criteria. If you are having a hard time video recording yourself because you don't like watching yourself on video, that's understandable. However, it gets easier. When we first started doing things online as a company, Your Yoga Flow, because we used to just do live trainings, then I also had to get used to seeing myself on video. And boy, oh boy, what a great way to feel really uncomfortable to look at oneself on video. So for a long time, I would do classes and I didn't need to watch them back because I was already a teacher, or I would do social media posts where I was showing some concept live or talking about something for a minute, and I wouldn't watch it because I thought, that's okay. I don't care. I did my best. I would just watch it enough to make sure the framing was okay, that I got it in under a minute if I was posting on Instagram and that kind of thing, because it did make me uncomfortable to look at myself on video. And I didn't want to pour over it and pick out all the things I could have done better and so on and so on. And the truth is, and this does apply to your practicum a little bit too, I also had to acknowledge that my audience was not probably ever going to watch that video twice. If they even watched the whole 59-second Instagram post once, that would be shocking. They probably weren't going to watch it twice. So if I start watching it more and more and more and finding all the flaws and things I could have done better, well, not only is that a huge waste of my time, because before I know it, I'm going to have to do another post and I'm going to still be thinking about the last post that's already up there for the world to see. But also, I lost the train of that last part of that thought. But yeah, so I know this sounds a little bit contradictory. On the one hand, I'm saying watch your practicum because this is an evaluation situation, so it's a bit different. But the other thing, I guess, that I'm trying to get across is when you're watching your practicum, really do your best to watch it for the criteria there, rather than, notice if what you're starting to get caught up in is, some thoughts or voices in your head that are criticizing the exact way that you said something, or how you look. And those things are all normal. They're going to come up and they're going to be uncomfortable to watch. And you can remind yourself then of one of the things that I like to remind myself of frequently is that it doesn't need to be perfect. It's only going to be watched once by one evaluator. So all of our evaluators are very generous people who want you to succeed. They want you to pass. And next point, the most important things to us are that you are teaching a safe class with clear, accurate cues. We really don't care that much about creativity. You're not getting points for creativity. We will applaud creativity and we'll give you glowing feedback if you manage to get in all the criteria and clear, accurate cueing as well, with safety instructions, alignment, modifications. But we don't mind if you have a very basic practicum that doesn't feel like it has a lot of flourishes or creativity or sparkle. Because when you're first starting to teach yoga, what we want to make sure you know how to do at the very base level, so that it's something you carry with you through your entire career as a yoga teacher, is we want to make sure you can teach safely, offer clear, accurate cues, and modify for different conditions, different common conditions, using props, so that once again, the most important aim is achieved, which is teaching a safe class. So try to remind yourself of that. And then that brings me to another point, which is I know that it's really challenging to do something really basic when you know something that you could do something really fabulous and you really want to do something fabulous. What I want to say to that is you will do all kinds of fabulous things out in the world for your real students, but don't waste your fabulousness on us, because we're just looking for safe, clear cueing, accurate alignment, and modifications for different conditions that make the class, again, safe. So it's great if you can do all that and you can still, shine and show your personality. And that's great. We love that. We applaud that. But we're not looking for that, and we're not giving you points for that. I have marked practicums. I have evaluated practicums where the person who was delivering the cues was clearly not at ease delivering the cues. They were uncomfortable. The cues, they appeared uncomfortable. The cues were sort of belabored, slow, very simple. There weren't many flourishes, and so on. That person passed because they gave accurate, clear cues, accurate, clear alignment cues, breath cues, modifications that made sure that the postures were safe. They used their props, demonstrated their props, used them properly to modify for different conditions. And so they passed. Even though that person, if you were to take their class, you would probably think, this person is definitely a very new teacher. That's okay. That brings me to another point. Entry level skill. We're looking for entry level teaching skills. I'm going to share a little story from my own life. I just graduated last year from RMT school, and living in Canada, in British Columbia specifically, being a registered massage therapist, which I am now, is it's a regulated health profession. So what that means is that just like physiotherapists or doctors, nurses, chiropractors, we have a provincial college that issues a board exam, and we have to take and pass the provincial board exam in order to become a registered massage therapist after 2 years of full-time training in British Columbia. So it's quite a serious profession. It isn't everywhere, but in British Columbia it is. And you can only take the exam once every 6 months. So if you fail, you can not take it again for 6 months, and it costs over $2,000 to take it. And you have a limit of 3 times that you can take it before you would have to appeal to the college and give them reasons why they should let you take it again. There's a practical part and there's a written part, not dissimilar to your exam. So I took my exam, and I think that one of the things I bring to most of what I do in life is I bring a lot of personality, a lot of warmth, a lot of presence when I'm treating people. And I was learning to practice massage therapy in school, and I was treating people in the student clinic. I felt like what I offered, due to my age and my background and my experience, was I offered a sort of very mature, mindful, aware, present, warm kind of interaction with the client. During my practicum for my exam, I was like a machine. I was like a wooden mechanical device. I had no personality. I just couldn't. I had to remember all the procedures, all the protocols, get consent, make sure to touch this way, don't touch that way, drape the sheet this way, don't drape it that way. My mind was full of all the educational information, the protocols, the procedures, the consent, all the things, basically the practicum criteria. I was full to the brim, trying to remember not to forget such and such and such and such. In the practicum environment for this particular exam, you don't even find out the condition that you're treating until you're in the exam. So they present you with an imaginary condition for the person, the real person that you're about to lay your hands on and treat. And you have to do an interview, an assessment, and then a treatment for this condition that they present you with, they give you 5 minutes to think about it. 5 minutes. And then you have to do a 15-minute interview or 7-minute interview, 7 minutes of assessment, and then a 30-minute treatment or something like that. I'll tell you, I was completely like, I was like a non-person. I just was like wide-eyed and, just trying to remember everything in every part of it. But I remembered to get consent, and I remembered to drape them properly so that they would feel safe. And I remembered to do the treatments, the techniques in the way that I'd been taught. I left that practical exam and I thought, that is the least warm, inviting, present, mindful interaction I've ever had with a patient, a client. And that was not the treatment I would give in real life, but it fulfilled the criteria and I passed. Yay! And that's what I told myself as I was waiting for my results as well. I kept telling myself, okay, Angela, you got consent. You gave a safe treatment. You asked 80% of the questions you should have asked. I forgot a couple important ones, but they weren't the most important ones, such as getting informed consent from the client regarding the treatment that you're about to give. So once again, they're concerned with safety, right? They're concerned with clarity. Do you know the techniques? Do you know how to do what you're supposed to be doing? So that's what we're looking for in the practicum. Can you demonstrate and clearly cue the posture with correct alignment and accurately and correctly suggest modifications using props the number of times that we tell you in the practicum criteria? We just want to see that you can teach a safe class. You might end up like I was in my practicum exam, where I was, a little bit wooden and a little bit mechanical. It might not be your most shiny experience of yourself. But as long as those things are there, you're going to pass. And even if you're not successful the first time, we will give you another opportunity. And so, yeah, that's mostly what I want to say about the practicum. Now, if there are other things that aren't sort of procedural and protocol related that are stopping you from doing the practicum, I want to speak to a few of those, and also to teaching in the real world, because some of the things that might be roadblocks in terms of us doing the practicum may also be roadblocks even after the practicum. So I want to talk about a few of those things. When I first started teaching yoga, I was not very confident. And, I'm fortunate that I do have a comfort being in front of people and talking in front of people, but usually only about things that I already know really well. So I was very nervous when I first started teaching. But I had also learned, because I was already, in my 30s when I started teaching 15 years ago. And I had already had experience doing things that were uncomfortable, because I was in my 30s. I was a singer-songwriter. I guess you can see my guitar in the background. I am a singer-songwriter still. And so I had performed when I felt nervous, and I'd had to work with those feelings, and so on and so forth. But there were still things that made me uncomfortable, because I had never taught yoga before, and I was very new at yoga, and I really didn't usually like to teach anything until I felt like I knew it really well. And I knew that if I waited that long, I was never going to teach. And so that's one of the things I want to say. If you wait until you feel like you know everything, you're never going to teach, because you're going to be learning about yoga until you take your last breath. You can't possibly know everything. So one of the things I like to tell myself is there's always going to be someone who knows more than you, but there's always going to be lots of people who don't know as much as you know. So that's one of the things I want you to tell yourself and remind yourself of when you are concerned that you're not ready to teach. And if that's the thought that's stopping you from even doing the practicum, because you're telling yourself something similar about the practicum, I don't know enough yet, I'm not ready yet. I want to remind you that before online trainings, people would do this practicum after 2 weeks with this material. 2 weeks. And in fact, we integrated a 30-hour mentorship program with the 200-hour program that you're taking. So the 200-hour program that you're taking is vastly more than 200 hours because we have integrated so much additional information, starting with the entire mentorship program, which used to be just for graduates of 200 hour. So now you have all that information as well. When we used to teach in-person trainings, they were 16 days, and the last 3 days were all student practicums because we needed all that time for people to teach 50 to 60-minute classes. So some people were teaching on day 14 of that, or sometimes even day 13, depending how big the group was. So the beauty of that was that they had to jump in. They had to just do it. They didn't have time to overthink it and become perfectionistic about it. And I get that because I'm like that too. And so I love the thanks. I'm just seeing Annette's message. Yay, well done. Thanks, Annette. And if you're writing messages, I've just been blabbing and I haven't been looking. So I will take a peek before I wrap up to make sure that I haven't missed any questions from anyone. But what I want to say is it's totally normal and understandable to be perfectionistic. And that is, I would say, the only drawback of an online training is that you can overthink everything. You can overthink these practicums because you have time to. You can put it off and put it off and put it off. And then the information starts to leave you because maybe you're getting distracted with other things in life and you're not reviewing anymore. So, I would invite you to do some real soul searching, similar to the post I put up on Motivation Monday in the Facebook group. And I said, I talked about a svadhyaya practice, a self-study practice. So if you are having a hard time moving forward in the practicum, whether it's that you haven't even started working on it or, but you're actually finished all the material, or you've started on it, but you've gotten stalled because you're having certain concerns, I want to invite you to sit down with your journal one day when you have 10 minutes. Just close your eyes, take some deep breaths, and see if you can hear, you can ask the question, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? That might be the most sensible question. That might be the most direct question. What am I afraid of? And then just wait. See if you can relax, let your mind be open to the quality of the mind that asks the question rather than trying to come up with answers. Just keep asking, what am I afraid of? What am I worried about? What am I concerned with? What's the story I'm telling myself about why I haven't done this yet or why I can't, and then just see if those stories come up and write them down. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes you don't have to dig and investigate and decide whether the story is true. Sometimes just to sit there and acknowledge that you're afraid, acknowledge that you're worried. I know it's very, not sure the word, sort of trite perhaps, but courage isn't feeling confident. I called this session Gaining Confidence, but courage doesn't actually necessarily require feeling confident. Courage, I think, and it has been many times in my life, is the decision to acknowledge that I'm afraid and do it anyway. I'm afraid. And now here I go. Because the fact is that the practicum is scary. But like I said, one evaluator's watching it and they're rooting for you. They want you to pass. Whereas when you go into the world of teaching, depending on how you intend to teach, I remember many times walking into a room full of drop-in students and especially subbing for a beloved teacher. Oh my gosh, talk about an intimidating experience. Walking into a class that is taught by one of the favorite teachers of the studio and having everyone as they come in and realize that maybe you were called in last minute. They don't know there's going to be a sub. I've had people walk in, look, see it was me and not the original teacher, and walk out. I had to get over that. I had to get over that, and I had to realize it's not about me. It's not about me. And maybe it is. Occasionally it is, right? So like I said in the Svadhyaya practice that I posted on Monday, maybe some of those stories that you're telling yourself are true sometimes. Like maybe I'm not that person's favorite teacher. Maybe they don't like how I teach. But the fact is that just like there's always going to be someone who knows more than me, and there's always going to be lots of people who don't know as much as me, I'm also never going to please everyone. I'm never going to be everyone's favorite teacher. But for every person who doesn't come to my class because they don't like my style of teaching, they create a space for someone who does love my style of teaching. And I just went through that all over again with becoming a registered massage therapist. And I remembered the beginning of my yoga career. And I remembered how at the beginning of my yoga career, I had all these stories in my head about what I thought people expected. And I thought people expected a class that was less traditional and more like exercise, and that I went too slow for them, and that I offered them, too much philosophy, and that was maybe not what they were into. And of course it depended because I worked at a lot of different studios. But, I taught for some classes for a decade, for 10 years, and had students stay with me from beginning to end. I even had one student interviewed because he was in his 70s and he had started taking his first class with me. And he was interviewed by someone studying for their master's in geriatric studies. And they said, well, now that you've been with Angela for a while, are you ready to try another yoga class? And he said, no, I'm sticking with Angela. So, what a reward, what a beautiful thing. And yet there were people who would walk in and see that it was me subbing for someone, and then they would walk out. So the other thing we have to do is kind of get over ourselves, right? Like we want to express ourselves, and we want to offer something that's uniquely us once we're out there in the teaching world. But we also just have to really cope with the fact, and reflect on the fact that not everybody's going to like us, but for everyone who walks away, they leave a space for someone who does love what we do. And that might mean that our classes, are not always as busy as we'd want them to be, but that's also okay, because we can then be true to ourselves once we get out into the teaching world. So there were a few other things that I wanted to say. And I wrote them down. So I'm just so jumping in. So again, I wanted to talk about how I wanted to just reinforce that, in a live training, people had to just jump in. They had to just jump in and do that dang practicum because they had to do it then and there. They didn't have the option to overthink it. And they passed, there was a very occasional person that had to redo something. But there you go. So just watch out for the overthinking part. And this is coming from, I don't know if I know anyone who overthinks things as much as I do. So this is coming from a chronic, overthinker. Try to recognize when you've spent enough time on the practicum and it's just time to just do it. Just jump in, do it, send it in, cross your fingers, know that we want the best for you. Definitely watch it back, compare it against the criteria, make sure the criteria is in there, and make sure that you've got the most important things: safety, clear cueing, accurate alignment, and modifications with props a few times. I think it's 4 times in the practicum criteria. The rest is just gravy. So don't worry too much about the rest of it. And don't worry if, like me in my practicum for being an RMT, you feel a little bit wooden and a little bit mechanical and a little bit not yourself. That's fine, because that's all going to come with practice. Practice is really, we used to advertise a lot. And I guess we don't use the line as much anymore. And it's not our quote. Someone else said it and I can't remember who, but if you want to learn, teach. And that is the truth. And it doesn't qualify it for all things, because if you're a surgeon, you can't, learn how to do surgery by practicing, you need to actually learn it first. But with yoga, you can, as long as you can teach a safe, clearly cued class, offer some modifications with props for common conditions that you see in classes, then you're good. Then get out there and just start teaching. That's how you'll learn. I started with a small group of 5 people in their workplace. I was nervous, but they were supportive and they were really grateful that I would come there because there weren't a lot of teachers who would teach a 5-person class that didn't pay that much. But it was a great environment for me to hone my skills. And, it just kind of went on from there. So I'm going to wrap it up because it's 10:30. I'm just going to have a quick peek and see if anyone asked a question that I should answer before I go. No questions. Good. Well, thanks for joining me today. And I hope that you've, as messy as my presentation was, that's the nature of live. It's not going to be perfect. So hopefully you picked up a tip or two, but there's great value in just jumping in and just getting it done. Just saying, okay, I'm just going to do it. And if you're close to that point, I say give it a try. Just jump in because I'm pretty sure it's going to be okay. We're rooting for you. We want you to be successful. And we're here for you. If you have any specific questions about your practicums, send them to support@YourYogaFlow. And other than that, wishing you a wonderful day. Take a deep breath and know that your self-study practice will carry you through. Just take a little time to reflect and give yourself a hug and then jump in. That's it for now. Wishing you a beautiful day.